morning. Welcome back to this episode of Coffee and Tea with Justin and Tashina. I should note, by the way, that we're now in season 2.
Whoa.
We both forgot to mention that in yesterday's episode, which was episode 1 of season 2.
That's crazy.
It's super crazy. Tashina and I sort of decided that the seasons would be broken up by month. Mm-hmm. So now that it's April, this is season 2.
Crazy. Thanks for being here.
Year, month of when we started. You get it. You get it. Yeah, thanks so much for being here. If you've been here the whole time, thank you. Mm-hmm. If you're just joining us now in season 2, thank you.
Yeah.
This episode, okay.
We kind of got off on a weird foot.
So, the whole point of this show is to be a nice distraction from what's going on, because there's a lot of intense stuff going on.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want people to stay well informed. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we want them to wash their hands and register to vote. But the point of this podcast is not to talk about current events. It's to let the audience have something to relax. Yeah. Let us have something to relax.
Yeah. Give everyone a breather.
Give everyone a breather. That said, we basically immediately dived into talking about religion, politics, and sex.
Yeah.
And then talked about that for like the first half hour. So if you're listening to this, in audio, I'll put a timestamp in the description so that you know where to skip ahead. If you're watching this on YouTube, I will put a link in that description with a clickable link so you can skip ahead to the timestamp.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It got derailed. We were talking about helpful stuff, and then we just went down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It happens, when you're in conversation. It happens from time to time.
And if I'm being honest, everything that we talked about, not everything, but a lot of it, especially the politics part, has been sort of like building up in me. Like I feel like I have to say something. And I actually think I did pretty well. Yeah. There's a lot more I think I could would say. Anyway, so... yeah, if you want to hear about that kind of stuff, then stick around. If you want to hear about Animal Crossing and drones
and lighthearted stuff,
more lighthearted, fluffy stuff, then just skip ahead.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what we're grateful for.
Ooh, I'm grateful that. Let me think. You go first this time.
Okay. I'm grateful that when my drone battery ignited yesterday, that it did not do so in the house.
Yes.
And that it did not do so on a flammable surface.
Yeah.
Out of all the scenarios in which a battery it combusts and or ignites and generates an immense amount of heat and smoke, chemical smoke, I am glad that it happened how it did, because I think that was the absolute best case scenario for a very bad, very scary, very terrible thing to happen. So
completely.
That's what I'm grateful for.
Yes. I am grateful that I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. I'm grateful to see so many small community connections lately. I feel like, we're seeing obviously like a lot of the same people comment on the vlogs, but I'm grateful that we're seeing more people interacting with each other and on the logical harmony stuff too. It's like there are a lot of familiar faces, and I'm excited to see those people start to becoming familiar with themselves. I think that's amazing.
You mean each other, or just like looking inside themselves and getting to really know
with
themselves?
Each other.
I mean, both are good.
Both are good, but with each other. I misspoke.
I mean, either way, I'm into it.
I think it's really good to see it, and I really like seeing it.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing, and I think it's something a lot of us need right now.
I really like seeing you, and I think you're amazing, and I think you're something a lot of us need right now.
Thank you.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
Okay.
All right, enough with that sappiness.
Yeah, get out of here.
Hey. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, we cook.
What? No one even knows what you're saying. Are you trying to be an auctioneer?
No, that's just me trying to say it really fast.
Do you want to sell something?
No.
And we'll talk more about Tashina selling stuff and being a crazy capitalist in Animal Crossing later.
Later. We can talk about that later. Not in this episode. Not today.
Not today, but tomorrow.
Okay.
Probably not. Yep.
Yep. Anyway, let's get into it. And thank you so much for being here listening.
I went to the grocery store yesterday for the first time in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Thanks for going, by the way.
Yes, you're welcome. We are, like we've talked about before, since we work from home, we generally have food here anyway.
Yeah.
We work from home, we don't have a car, and there aren't really any good vegan restaurants within a couple miles of us. Well, maybe within a couple miles.
Yeah. It's
Still,
not like
though,
small.
Yeah, nothing that we're like, walking to get, which means in our normal day-to-day life, pre stay at home orders, we wouldn't really be going out too much anyway. It would be a very, very intentional thing. It's not a casual thing.
No, not at all.
We would do. Or it's not necessarily something we would do like on a whim.
Yeah, and we're used to having tons of stuff here to make the majority of our meals.
Totally. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm getting at
sorry.
you don't have to apologize. It's fine. Yeah, that's my point though, is that because we don't go out regularly, we generally have enough food for at least a week or two.
Yeah.
So I went to the store yesterday and kind of did a more or less like a regular shopping trip.
Yeah.
There were just a few things that, like, if normally I buy one thing of soy milk, I bought two.
Yeah.
But that was definitely not everything. And I guess, and some things that there just wasn't, like, we're basically out of flour, and there were two bags of flour. One of them had a giant hole in them.
That's so crazy.
Other than that, the shelves were completely cleared, other than like a couple bags of like gluten-free flour, which I didn't want. So what am I getting at there? I guess what I'm getting at is I think because of how we normally live our lives at home anyway, that we have enough now where hopefully we won't have to go to the store for like a month. Which again, I feel like I need to emphasize, I'm not saying that we stockpiled stuff, because we didn't.
No.
If you came into our house and looked in our cupboards or in our refrigerator, you wouldn't notice the difference between a month ago.
Yeah, it's like the fridge is full because we just went to the store, which is normally how it is.
Yeah, exactly. There's really no stockpiling going on here.
No.
And so yeah, just want to emphasize that.
Yeah.
However, the plan is to not go to the store for like a month because we want to minimize our exposure as much as possible, not necessarily for our own health, but more so because we don't want to be spreading it if we do end up having to go somewhere else. Like, there will be a couple things we'll have to go do. Like, we'll have to go to the UPS store sometime in the next month. I don't really know what else, honestly.
Yeah, it's
not a lot else comes to mind.
Yeah.
But I think, too, one change for us in our lives is that normally we would go to the store like every other day or like every 3 days just to pick up a couple things here or there. And so we've basically just done what we need to do to not have to do that.
Yeah. I think the only change we've made, and I bring this up because I saw someone comment about, like, what are we doing about fresh produce?
Oh, right.
Is, we definitely store things in a way to keep them fresh longer. So with a lot of produce, like, if you wrap it in like damp towels or something, it helps preserve it and keep it fresh. But also we bought some frozen stuff, which we don't.
Yeah.
Usually we do have some frozen vegetables, but we bought like a few extra bags of frozen vegetables, or maybe some vegetables we wouldn't normally get frozen. Like, we got some frozen cauliflower.
Yeah, you mean instead of getting fresh?
Instead of getting fresh, yeah. Just so that way it's there and it'll keep a little bit longer. So I think, like, right now, if you're in that situation, like, frozen stuff's a good option.
Yeah. Yeah, especially, again, if it's stuff you already buy.
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking about stockpiling. We're not talking about hoarding. Please don't do that.
Yeah, please don't do that. But
it's actually kind of funny because we, like, we're going to run out of toilet paper before the end of the month.
Oh
And
no, I didn't even think about that.
yeah, and when I was in the store yesterday, there was none. I mean, there was barely like facial tissues, like face tissues. Is that what they call that? Like,
Maybe I'll see if it's not on back order on Grove anymore. The last time I looked, it was back ordered like over a month on Grove even.
yeah.
But I'll double check.
Yeah, that's the thing that sucks is like people who are hoarding and stockpiling stuff, I think are who they would normally do that just because that's how they are, like because they're scared or they're anxious or whatever. They think it's the end of the world and they're going to run out of toilet paper. Then there are normal people who don't do that stuff.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of normal people are starting to do that because they're like, well, it's here now. And if I come back, it's not going to be here because it hasn't been here.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I think my point is just that it's an unfortunate cycle of people hoarding it and stockpiling it. I do not believe that people aren't hoarding or stockpiling. And I'll also say that they've changed the signs at the grocery store. They no longer say 2 per customer on certain things. All the signs now say 2 per household.
Interesting.
So I think people are definitely going in and, getting multiples of things or having their kids get things. And
I will say too, I do feel for some of the families that, like, I just remember one of the first times I went to the grocery store here by myself, and there was a woman in front of me who was pregnant, and she was talking to the cashier about how it was kids 11 and 12 because she was pregnant with twins, and she was she was like 30, 35. And so
it was her 11th and 12th kid?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm just thinking about like the difference between, now that those kids aren't at school and now that they're at home, the difference you need in food for that, in toilet paper for that, in cleaning supplies for that is massive. And so it's like, I feel for families like that too, because for a family with 12 kids, 2 packs of toilet paper is not enough. So it's like, it's impacting everyone, for various reasons.
I have an argument to make about that for society.
You don't have 12 kids?
Well, I'm not saying don't have 12 kids. I'm just saying if you chose to have 12 kids, like your household is not more important than someone who chose to have 0 kids or someone who chose to have 2 kids.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know how hard a stance I would take on that because that thought literally just popped into my mind. I feel like this is a weird conversation that might come up in The Good Place.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't know. I just, you know what I mean? Like you decided to have 12 kids. That's cool. More power to you. But does that mean that you get to stockpile a bunch of stuff to the extent that people who have 2 kids don't get toilet paper?
Yeah, I guess on paper, I get the sentiment.
On toilet paper.
Yes, but I feel like the only people it will negatively impact are the kids in that situation.
But what I'm saying is, if one group of kids has to go without toilet paper...
I mean, neither should. The parents should. I get what you're saying. If one group has to go...
But if there are 12 of them, that's a massive difference between 2.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm just saying it's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah. Especially when you think, I don't know, what is the impact on the environment that those 12 human beings will have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the wear and tear on the playground? Obviously, kids aren't supposed to be on playgrounds right now, but what's the wear and tear on the public playground that this one family is having versus a family with 2 kids?
Yeah.
Gonna wear out that playground equipment a lot quicker.
That's true. That's true. Anyway.
I'm really just saying this for something to think about. I don't really care enough to have a real opinion on it.
Okay.
It is fun to talk about, though.
It is interesting to talk about the ethics and moral dilemmas of having big families in today's day and age. Yeah,
and then there's also the whole whoa, well, who gets to decide who gets to have a family?
Yeah.
That gets into some really messed up stuff of who's making the decision of who can breed. Then you're getting into some weird, not cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. pretty weird stuff.
Yeah, you took this on a deep turn there.
Well, I'm just saying, I was thinking if you were saying my side and I was trying to look at the other side I would probably look at it would be, well, who gets to decide that?
Yeah.
Who gets to decide whether people should have 2 kids or 1 kid? Or some people might make the argument that, like, oh, you should only have a lot of kids if you make X amount of money. And then we're talking about, oh, so the wealthy are allowed to breed, but like lower working class people aren't allowed to have children. It's a whole thing.
It is a whole thing. Anyway, I was just bringing it up as, like, you know, I think some of those families are families that are always prepared. Because I know, like, okay, I don't know, but I've heard that it's part of LDS culture, especially here in Salt Lake. And if you're local, correct me if I'm wrong.
Be like a prepper of sorts, at least to a degree.
Yeah, apparently there's like an advised guideline to have enough stuff on hand for your family to live for a year. Well, as far as supplies go, like food and basic necessities.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was a real thing, because the LDS church does that.
Yeah.
Like when I was reading, so there's like there's basically the LDS church is involved in like, I don't remember what the terms are. I don't know if it's fraud or tax evasion, or I think it kind of encompasses all of those. Scandal, where basically they're like distributing money that's supposed to be used only for nonprofits, and then they're using that to fund for-profit ventures, and still asking their working class people to tithe and give them money that's, 10% can make the difference of being able to save and not being able to save. Meanwhile, the church is spending all this, millions of dollars in for-profit stuff when it's supposed to be nonprofit, and holding on to a huge savings or stockpile of money. And in that article, representatives from the church, the article that I read, were saying, yeah, but this is no different than like we stockpile grain, we stockpile basically, like you're saying, that high up in the church, and the church in and of itself holds on to massive quantities of things to make sure if things go sideways, they can just hunker down here in the basin. Yeah, and apparently all their members as families are supposed to do the same. Yeah.
So
not surprising if that's true.
Yeah. So I think, I'm feeling for like the low income families that happen to have a lot of kids, because stuff happens. And I think sometimes people there are a variety of situations in which people end up with a lot of children.
Yeah, I think there's a whole other thing of on the other side of telling people not to have kids because maybe their financial situation wouldn't be necessarily improved, versus also, is it also just as irresponsible to tell people to have a ton of kids when there's no way they could afford a ton of kids? Like if somebody came to us and like opened our books and was like, you should have 6 kids, I'd be like, that is a really irresponsible thing for you to say, because there's no way we could afford a kid.
Yeah.
We can barely afford cats.
Yeah. Well, and two, it's not even to me about, being told you should have kids. It's about access to like education. It's about access to healthcare.
But if we're talking about the LDS church and the culture, then it's easy to say, yes, you're encouraged and told that you should have a lot of kids.
I agree, but it's also easy to say that they don't necessarily have access to different, there's a stigma, my understanding from people I grew up with, there's a stigma about like taking birth control in that community. There's educational barriers there.
Yeah, but that's all been built and is intentional.
It is, yeah. But I'm saying it's aside from them encouraging the women, like encouraging people to have lots of kids, there are other social standards in place that make it more difficult also.
Right. Social standards in place that were put there by the church.
Yes. I'm not arguing with you.
It sounds like you are.
No. I'm saying that there's more to it than just being told to have a lot of kids.
Yeah, I agree and I disagree, because that is part of being told to not to have a lot of kids. If you're saying don't use birth control, you're effectively saying have kids all the time.
Yeah, but it's not that they're saying don't use birth control. It's that my understanding is there's a very negative stigma associated with the act of going and getting on birth control.
How is that different than... Well, first of all, are they not saying to not use birth control? Because I'm pretty sure...
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they are saying don't use birth control.
I don't know. Again, I'm not from the LDS community. I don't know the ins and outs.
Me either.
I'm just saying it's more nuanced than just saying they're encouraged to have kids. It's like, yes, that is the overarching theme.
Yeah, okay.
But there are little things within it that I think are important to touch on, especially coming from it as a woman.
I guess what I'm trying to say, though, is that that's all just part of the same issue.
Yeah, like I said, that's the overarching theme. There are little things underneath it that I do think are important to be addressed, because it's not as easy as saying, just if the church were to say, okay, don't have as many kids, there are other issues that would need to be addressed in order to like be a part of that. So it's not just that people are like encouraged to have kids. I think it's that a lot of people, I mean, public school systems for sexual education aren't that great. I think a lot of people, maybe they don't intend to have as many kids as they do because of the stigma against birth control, because of the limited education systems available, things like that. Like, I don't think every person in the LDS community sets out to have 20 children, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I'm saying that it's a system that's set in place that you don't even necessarily have to say that. I mean, you and I are saying the same thing.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing.
Your tone sounded like you disagreed with me and that you wanted to have an argument. So that's why I'm confused, because when that happens, my thought is, okay, she's agreeing with me, but her tone seems like she's getting worked up and disagreeing with me. So I'm not really sure what's going on here.
No, we're agreeing. I just feel like you're talking about, again, like this overarching theme, whereas I'm talking about some very specific parts of that theme.
Yeah.
That's all. I just think that it's especially important to highlight access to birth control, access to sex education in these conversations.
I think what I'm hearing from you is the solution would not be for the church to change its official stance.
Yeah, it would be more.
Right. And what I'm trying to express, which is an agreement with that statement, is that, yes, that is true, and those systems were created by the church intentionally, in my opinion.
I think a lot of it, yeah, but I think that...
And just like our country's low level of things in general, but like... I'm pretty sure Utah is one of those states where the public school system is not as great as other states.
Yeah, it is really bad here from what I've read.
Yeah, and I personally, I'm not saying that all religious people are uneducated. I do, in my limited personal experience, have noticed that in a lot of religions, especially ones that tend to be oppressive in certain ways. And if you want to have an argument, by the way, if you're watching this and you're like, I want to have an argument with Justin about that the LDS Church is not oppressive, okay, go for it. I'm not going to join in because you're crazy, but...
Most cultural systems are, to a degree, I feel like.
Cultural?
Yeah, like it goes beyond the church. Like most societal systems are oppressive to a degree.
Oppression of some people. True.
Yeah.
Okay, so... it seems to me that oftentimes the more oppressive, the less education there tends to be. I have an uncle who's a born-again Christian, just as again, because I'm talking about my personal experience, right? And he actually told me that we were having an argument about other countries that don't allow young girls to learn things like math. And we were having an argument about this, and he said something along the lines of, and this is almost a direct quote, I just don't remember because it was years ago, but it was something like, as long as she's learning about God, I don't care if the school doesn't teach her math. And I was like, wait, let me clarify. What you're saying is, if your daughter goes to public school, you're okay with them teaching your son, who he does have a son and daughter. You're okay with them teaching your son math, but not teaching your daughter math because she's a girl. As long as she comes home and studies her Bible, and he's like, "Yep." And I said, "That's freaking crazy."
Yeah.
I feel bad for your daughter.
Yeah. And I think that is furthers kind of what I'm saying, where they're not a part of the LDS community. But if she wanted access to good sexual health, if she wanted access to birth control, there'd be so many barriers in the way.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like that's where it's like more, there needs to be better access to all those systems. And those systems need to be better.
Yeah.
And I think in some areas of the country they are. And I think in a lot of areas they're not.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Like I remember growing up having friends that would run into stuff, and like the town I grew up in didn't even have a Planned Parenthood. And so friends were like, I need access to this thing, and the only way to get it is to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to some other town.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to do that?
There was a Planned Parenthood, or there rather is a Planned Parenthood in Napa, and I'm sure that he took days off, but basically every single day there was a guy out there with signs and a van parked right in front that's like, "You kill babies, abortion kills, Planned Parenthood murders children, blah, 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 blah." By the way, if you're anti-women having the choice and you're... I feel like I have to keep saying
so
this.
many
Like,
disclaimers today.
If you feel like you're going to comment about how you're quote-unquote pro-life, first of all, you better not support guns or the death penalty. And second of all, or any war ever. And second of all, we don't want to hear your opinion. Sorry.
Yeah, this is getting political.
Well, I mean, it has been, right? Like,
Yeah, it
this
has
episode is now sex, politics, and religion.
Yeah,
So
it's all the things you're not supposed to talk
Is that
about.
the word divisive?
Yeah, it's
The
all the
most
things.
polarizing.
Yeah.
Well, here we are.
Yep.
Mike finally got his wish.
Was this Mike's wish?
Whenever I say, like, "Oh, what should we talk about in this?" Maybe not whenever, but often when I ask, "Oh, what should we talk about this?" Mike generally comments and says, "Sex, religion, and politics."
That's so funny. I've been playing Pocket Camp with Mike, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, you can't literally play together. There's no system in place for that.
Yeah.
But it's been fun.
I feel like you're trying to change the subject, but this episode's already ruined. We should.
No.
I mean, ruined as far as like not letting people relax and just think
Yeah.
about fluffy nonsense.
Yeah.
I think we should either start over or just keep going.
Oh, no. Okay. I mean, I don't really have much else to say on that right now. Do you?
Oh, I could talk about my feelings on the current system and how things are going. I'm not happy currently. Like, I wouldn't say that for the last several years or decades or whatever you want to call it, that I've been particularly thrilled with the way that things have run in our country. And I would say that I guess I thought that there would be... I thought the next big thing that I would be annoyed by would be just like more Nazis in general in the U.S. Because like,
Oh my gosh.
the president has created a world in which like it's okay to be a Nazi again, which is insane to me. Or at least facilitated. I shouldn't give him all the credit
Yeah.
for creating that.
Yeah, it has definitely allowed more people to be open, expressing their white nationalist views.
Right. Yeah. Well, because he called himself a nationalist on TV. And where was I going with that? Oh, right. I thought that would be, like kind of the big thing that was going to explode and cause a problem. I didn't see a virus happening. That just wasn't in my thoughts. So I didn't really think too much about how poorly things would be handled if that did happen. And now that it's happening and we're realizing how poorly it's being handled.
Yeah.
And not to mention just like the racism and xenophobia that's now coming out into the open. Like last night I saw a video on Twitter of these white girls spitting on and kicking these two Asian girls. And I was like, wow, this is really messed up. It's terrifying
Yeah.
that we are at a time that this sort of thing is happening, and that the country is run by somebody who has no issue with basically... Didn't he call it the Chinese virus or the China virus? He said some
He
terminology.
did. And then there were photos of his speech. And to be fair, I don't know if these were real or fake. They were circulating on Twitter where supposedly coronavirus was crossed out and Chinese virus was handwritten. No idea if they're real or
Yeah,
not.
I have
though.
no interest in the like gossip and hearsay.
Yeah.
Like,
But he did say it.
yeah, he said it, which is...
It's bad enough.
Yeah, I could care less how the speech was originally written. I don't care. Like, you choose the words that you say on national television.
Yeah, especially when you're in that sort of position.
Yeah.
I honestly...
So there's some of my political views, as well as the whole stimulus thing and how I don't feel like any corporation... Like, I have mixed feelings on this whole bailout situation. Like, I don't have any interest in the airline industry getting a bailout while they are laying off employees.
Yeah, like the employees are the ones that should be getting the help.
Right. Like, especially because everything that I've seen so far says that the last 10 years have been like the best financially for the airline industry as a whole.
Yeah.
And now you want to take tax money because but by the way, because you spent your profit and all this money that you made buying back your own stock. Like,
Yeah.
you mother flippers.
And I don't know where Delta is in that, but I do know the CEO of Delta. And I mention this because they're based here in Salt Lake. So it's like I see more about Delta.
Oh, okay.
He is not taking a salary for at least 6 months to pay employees to avoid layoffs. I don't know how much of that is like, you know, actually happening versus I feel like so many brands,
Right, yeah.
so many corporations release headlines about we're not going to lay off staff, we're going to pay them. And then they've either laid off staff or they've paid them for like the absolute bare minimum, which is, I mean, it's
something,
better
but
than
it's
nothing.
still pretty messed up.
Yes, I saw, you know, I've seen
Especially if you're going public and taking all the credit
exactly
for doing this wonderful
Stand behind
thing.
it. Stand behind it. Actually do it. I can't remember. I think it was Sephora. I can't remember for sure though. One of the companies that had said we're going to do this and keep paying our employees for like their minimum scheduled shifts. And a lot of people were like, that's great. But technically, since I'm not full time, my minimum scheduled shift is 4 hours a week. So it's like, is it better than nothing? Sure. But it's also like,
yeah, Sephora could probably... Having known someone who worked for Sephora corporate, I you know, in the limited capacity that I did, and I don't know a ton about, you know, obviously, I don't know a huge amount about their financials.
Yeah.
But what I can say is, I'm pretty sure they could afford it. Like, would it mean that their executives would not get as much money? Would it mean that I think it's a public company, their shareholders might be
don't know.
upset? Sure. But like, I feel like at this point where we are, people are having to make intense sacrifices.
Yeah.
And it's the people at the bottom.
yeah.
And I just feel infuriated by that.
It's tough. And especially in like every state has different unemployment laws. So like, you know, some states it's much easier to get unemployment than others. And some people were saying that in their state, by, you know, signing them on for that minimum 4 hours a week, it meant that they weren't eligible for unemployment during this time.
Yeah.
Or there was someone who was like, oh, they told me they laid me off, but technically they put me at 0 hours. I'm still an employee, so I can't get unemployment.
Yeah.
So it's like there's so many things where it's just like...
I think unfortunately that person who said that might be mistaken. My understanding is, I don't know, but I guess I would just, if that I would hope that if someone listening or watching is in a similar situation, that they would look into it, because I do think right now they're doing things a little bit different with unemployment, especially in California.
Yeah.
And so I think that because we were talking to one of our friends who's been furloughed, and I don't know if that's different. I guess it is different than laid off. They still have a job once the stores reopen.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the technicalities are, but I would say if you think that you understand the unemployment situation from before all this happened, and thus you are aware, bless you, or think that you can't get unemployment, please look into it, because I think things are changing right now, and there might be different special circumstances given what's going on, and you might be able to when you previously would not have been able to.
Yeah, it's worth checking into to see. And I do know every state has different laws. Every state has different requirements. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when I moved to California, I was like, just Oregon and California are very different with their unemployment laws and who can collect unemployment money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's worth looking into wherever you are. And then at least you're aware and you know where you stand.
Yeah, and keep checking, because things are going to keep changing.
Yeah, keep checking.
I mean, every day states are doing different things.
Yeah.
Like even just the other day here in Salt Lake, the mayor of Salt Lake City announced that they were not going to be enforcing parking limits until, I don't remember the number, but I think it was like April 14th or something.
Yeah.
And then they even backdated it to like March 23rd. So they were like, if you've got a parking ticket anywhere, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
It is.
Because,
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
there's a lot going on at like state levels and city levels. So that's part of, I think, being informed during this time is figuring out what's going on
yeah,
that would impact you.
totally.
You know, and some programs, like some food banks are doing more. Like there's a lot going on to help people.
Yeah.
So it's not all sad and bad, but there's a lot of it that is. But I think that
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this, to me, I want to agree with you. Like, you're right. It's not all sad and bad.
yeah.
However, the little good things that are happening, to me, is like, it's like when you see the stories that are like, oh, all these amazing people came together to pay this person's medical bills. And it's like, yeah, that's a beautiful story. But isn't the underlying story here that people can't pay their medical bills? Like, yeah, it's great that all these people came together, but shouldn't we be highlighting the fact that this is really messed up, that people can't afford to go to the hospital?
I agree with you, but I do think that right now some people need to view these small positives. And I feel like there's so much focus on what's wrong right now because there is so much that's going on that's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's not good for so many people, that anywhere we can find those little things, we need to focus on those. We need to highlight those, because I feel like it's right now at the state of things. I feel like it's so easy for so many people to completely lose hope and feel so discouraged and so frustrated. And I'm saying that if you're in that position, you know, I know it's hard, but check and see what systems are available to help you, because there might be some that you're not even aware of. And there might be that like little glimmer of hope to make things a little bit less stressful, a little bit better. And I just think that right now, a lot of us really need that. Like a lot of people really need that.
Yeah. I mean, you're preaching to the choir. The whole reason we started this podcast was to have something positive to talk about.
Yeah, very true.
Mission accomplished in this episode.
Oh, yeah, we did such a good job.
All right. Well, do you want to talk about Pocket Camp?
I do. I did.
Okay.
I did, but now it feels so out of place.
Well, we can just tell people to skip ahead to this point, and I'll put a little timestamp in the video description.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Okay.
So,
tell me about Pocket
they're
Camp.
playing Animal Crossing Pocket Camp more. So many people.
Which,
well,
again, is the free version of Animal Crossing.
It's totally
for
free.
iOS.
It's on iOS. I don't know if it's on Android. I kind of just assume that it is, but I have no idea. But you download it. There are like in-app purchases you can make. I don't make those. You don't need to make those to have it be enjoyable and lighthearted. But it's been fun. I was saying Mike is playing now.
Yeah.
And so that's been fun. because you can't like literally play together, but you can do things like visit each other's campsites and water each other's gardens and go into people's RVs and be a creep, and it's fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then the animals, they make requests of you. The other day, this little chipmunk.
Who are the animals? The other players?
No, they're like the computer. The computer has animals that you gift things to and you talk to. So like they're like, I really want fruit, and you're like, cool, here's an orange. And then once your friend level gets high enough,
Why does your friend level get higher?
As you give them things.
Stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're completing like requests for them.
Didn't you have one request a space shuttle?
That's where I'm going with the story.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
So they can come live at your camp or your cabin. And then to get to like, your friend level keeps going up. And at a certain point, they request something. And your friend level doesn't go up unless you fulfill that request. So first I had one that requested a sports car. I was like, you are a dog. Do you need a sports car? This is a very expensive thing that you want me to put at my campsite. You want me to take away other amenities and put in the sports car.
Because you need a sports car. We can't have a dishwasher.
Yeah. Another one requested
or a motorcycle tent.
One requested a clothes washer, and I was like, all right, I'll fulfill that one. That's practical. Another one requested an exercise ball. Same thing. I was like, that's practical. It's cheap.
So you
cool.
don't think these campers are worth they're worth being able to fulfill their daily needs, but not worth actually being able to like have fun and enjoy their free time?
Yeah, I guess so. And then this little chipmunk. Yeah, then this little chipmunk was like, I want a space shuttle. And I was like, what? Like, and I think what's funny to me is, and I was talking to Justin about this last night, the fact that people wrote this into the game. People sat in a room, whether it was virtual or real, and made these decisions of like, oh, at level 9 with this little chipmunk, he should ask for something. What should it be? A space shuttle. Like, it's just really funny to me that this is all intentionally created.
Yeah.
Like, it's really funny. And so some of the requests, like, yeah, one of them was like, oh, I want a makeup box. Like, some of them are like very, like, in the game you buy things with like your currency. And then also with materials. And so some of them you're like, oh, that's cheap. It doesn't take much material. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
And then others like a freaking space shuttle. It's like, you want me to spend so much money and so many materials. Who are you?
Who do you think you are?
Yeah, it's
little
funny.
chipmunk.
It's funny.
Alvin.
I told Mike about it, and he said I was being too nice. I had made my campsite too nice. And I don't remember his like literal words, but it was basically like, you've made them entitled by giving them a nice campsite with so many weird amenities.
Wow.
Yep. Because it's fun and it's funny. And like you put in little things and then they interact with them in your campsite. And it's an enjoyable break from things to like go there to your campsite and there's a deer juggling.
Yeah.
Like just, it's so ridiculous. It's fun. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I posted on Instagram and Twitter what my like code is so people could add me, and a lot of people added me. So that's been fun because some like Pauline, who I don't know if you're listening. I know you do sometimes. Like she added me and I was like, oh, it's someone I actually like, I recognize you. So I like to, whenever I get a notification that her plants need watering, I go water her plants and things like that because I'm like, I'm helping Pauline. It's
That's
fun.
nice of you.
I try to be nice. I don't know. It's just fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
I like that there's those little community elements to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been playing more chess
Yeah, I know.
on the internets.
How's that going for you?
It's going fine. My chess score is the highest that it's been in probably like at least a year.
Dang.
Maybe 2 years.
Yeah, because you've been playing not a lot, but more than normal.
Yeah, it'll drop down again. This is always how it goes in waves, and then it just depends on how big the waves are, but I'm sure it'll drop again, probably by 100 points or so. I also flew my drone yesterday for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And the battery
wasn't gonna tell this story.
basically. Yeah, so the thing with homemade drones or like race drones is that they use these batteries that are kind of finicky, sort of just have to be treated a very specific way.
Why is that? Do you know? Is it because they're multi-cell or like because of the shape?
No.
Not very sound construction.
I don't know. No, it's not that they're... I think it's just by nature, this type of battery
Yeah.
is very fragile, I guess,
Okay.
in its existence.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not really sure how to word it, but
Well, and with the drone too, you're not putting it like inside a protective thing either.
correct.
Like it's the battery strapped on, basically.
Yeah, not even basically, literally. You have Velcro straps. You're strapping a battery to the outside of the drone. Some drones it slides in.
Okay.
Like some commercial drones that use similar or that use the same type of batteries, the battery slides inside the body of the drone.
Okay.
Even the race drones that GRL uses.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at applesauce. She's being a little otter right now.
Yeah, she's very adorable. The race drones that the Drone Racing League uses, the battery goes inside of those ones. So
Okay.
So it does exist, but yeah, I mean, typically drones that you're making at home, one of the main factors is going to be weight. Mm-hmm. Even if you're not going for the lightest build possible
Okay.
in the world, there's a balance between weight and performance.
Yeah.
So anyway, to build some sort of shell around some sort of protective casing around the battery would probably be more weight than anyone would want to add to their drone.
Yeah.
That said, these batteries, there's a lot to them. So like if you don't use them for a couple of weeks, they need to be at a specific storage voltage so that they don't go bad. There's things like that.
And do you need special equipment to get them to that voltage, or like how would you do that?
You would just go out and fly it.
Okay.
And either fly it down to that voltage, or if it went a little bit below, then you would charge it up to that voltage.
Okay.
There are also things called battery killers where you can plug your battery into it, and it'll have like a series of lights or something so that your battery is powering something.
Okay.
And it just powers it, and then when it gets to that certain voltage, you just unplug it.
Okay.
So there are different ways of doing it, but anyway, yesterday. Mm-hmm. So again, they're kind of fragile in that their physical being has to kind of stay good. And I was flying for the first time yesterday since flying in a long time, and I actually felt pretty good. I felt pretty confident on the sticks. Like I was flying around, like I felt like I had control. I didn't feel like, oh, I haven't flown so long and it's just going all over the place.
Yeah.
I think it was more that I just didn't have my, like, the fine tuning dialed in for my flying. Mm-hmm. And I was going pretty fast, and there's like a tree with a really big branch off the trunk, the trunk basically split into a Y shape. And I was going to go through the gap and slammed into the branch, which was, a good like foot and a half in diameter.
It was loud.
It was super loud, and we were not close to it. And I guess my battery pack took most of the impact. And when I picked it up, I was like, oh, my battery looks like it got hit. Mm-hmm. But I don't have that much experience with this stuff. So I was like, well, I'll fly it again and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I flew it again and crashed it again. And I don't know if on that second crash, the battery took the impact again.
It did. I saw it.
It did?
Yeah.
I was going pretty quick on that one too.
Yeah.
And my drone falls out of the sky. I was flying it on a closed playground. Like the playgrounds here are all closed for the virus stuff. And in slamming into the thing, it dropped onto the playground, not into the bark, but like,
one of the structures.
One of the structures, yes. And
which are all metal.
Right, which are all metal. And I was walking over. Well, the slides and stuff are plastic.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The point is, it started smoking.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of smoke.
It was.
And then one by one, each battery cell, 'cause it's a 4-cell battery, I don't want to use the word exploded because that sounds as though there was an explosion.
Ignited?
And there wasn't. Ignited, yeah, sure. So basically it was like you could see it because one would go and it would slowly increase in the smoke and then like this huge thing of smoke and then it would dissipate.
And then you hear a little pop.
Yeah, and then the next one, the one next to it would go, and I don't know, maybe 20 minutes it went just one cell, one by one. It was scary.
It was.
It was really scary. I'm glad it didn't fall into the bark.
Me too. That's why I'm glad this stuff was metal.
Yeah. I don't know that it would have started a fire in the bark, but I'm more than happy to not have found out.
Yeah.
And if I had thought that this was an option for what would have happened, I would not have flown. Like, I did not realize how fragile. I mean, I slammed it into a tree at a pretty high speed.
Yeah.
But still, I didn't realize how fragile they are and how physical damage plays such a big role.
Yeah, I did not think that would happen or I didn't think it could happen. Like, I guess on the scale of possibility, I knew it was on there, but I thought it was a lot farther than it was.
Yeah.
Because it's normal when you have a drone to hit things. It's totally normal to crash. That's a very regular occurrence.
Right.
So,
and again, your battery's strapped to the outside, so it's it's pretty likely that your battery is going to make impact with something.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't realize how fragile they were.
Yeah, that was
so
scary.
when I saw the smoke, I was like, oh, what? What's happening?
Yeah.
It went for a while. A little kid watched from a distance.
From a very far distance.
Yeah, he had seen the whole thing because he was watching you fly your drone anyway.
Oh, really?
And then I just saw him be like, and like looking around because he was like little.
Yeah.
So I think he was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on?
Don't burn
like,
down my playground, dude.
Yeah, I can't touch it. Save it for me. Yeah. But
yeah, a couple people came over. They're like, was that your drone? We're like standing there in this cloud of smoke. We're like, yeah, that's my drone.
Yep.
Oh, what happened?
So we don't know yet if it flies, if it damaged stuff.
Yeah, after that, I was like, I don't have the... First of all, in addition to just not being happy that happened, it was also kind of embarrassing. Like, I'm not going to now strap a new battery to this thing and fly it around here. I'm going to give it a couple days.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice.
And second of all, I just emotionally was like, I don't want to fly right now.
Yeah. And I felt so uncertain too, because it's like, I didn't know, for me too, I was like, we don't know if there's other damage to this that we can't see.
To the drone, you mean?
Yeah, to the drone that would impact its flying ability. And then, so then it's like, if you have been like, I'm just going to put on another battery, it's like, well, what if it isn't as responsive as it needs to be? Or I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there are a variety of considerations.
Heat is definitely a factor. And my drone still has all the snowproofing on it, so it's very insulated.
Yeah.
So to just, have a
burning thing.
an ignited battery strapped to it for 15 minutes. Luckily, the battery was unplugged. I don't know what would have happened if it had been plugged in.
Oh, wait, it unplugged itself? Like, what happened?
Oftentimes when I crash the battery, even if it doesn't completely eject from the drone, it at least disconnects from it.
That's good.
Not always, because that's what powers my beeper, my little beacon to help me find it. Or like it helps you if you still have your goggle view, you can use that to help find it if you've crashed somewhere. So typically I prefer that the battery stays plugged in.
But in this case, it's good that it didn't.
In this case, yeah.
Because, I feel like that could have been some weird power surges.
Yeah, I don't know what would have happened, but there's definitely stuff that you can install on your drone to, I think they're called capacitors.
That would make sense.
To basically
flux capacitors.
Sure. To prevent your drone from having like power surges and stuff. And I definitely don't have any of those installed. So
maybe you should look into those. I don't know how much they are. But it might, if they're cheap, it might be a good safety.
$1.50 or something. I don't think they're expensive.
It might be a good safety then. Just having been through this now, I feel like I'm a very cautious person. So I feel like when stuff like this happens, it's like, that was the freebie. Like, this is my like warning,
Yeah.
of like, prepare, basically, like make sure you're prepared if this happens again.
I think what I'm actually going to do is, because a lot of my batteries are damaged from other things.
Yeah.
Like crashing, and then one of the battery leads gets ripped out of the battery.
Yeah.
And so physically, in every other way, the battery appears to be fine, but it's not usable, and I'm not going to take a soldering iron and try to resolder this battery lead. It's a liability, and it's just like, I have no idea at what point I would be getting something so hot that the battery would just start to explode in my face in the living room. Like, I don't need to, and I don't want to find that out. Right, exactly.
No.
So I have other batteries like that need to be recycled anyway. So I think likely what I will do is just, I think I still have like one battery that's in good condition, and I might just put that one into storage mode or donate it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Recycle all the other ones.
Yeah.
And then just be okay with flying in the simulator until we have a little more money and I can afford to get better stuff, and not that these batteries were poor quality, although when I posted about it in the local drone Facebook group, a handful of people said that they had lipo battery fires from this particular manufacturer.
That's scary.
It is, but in my case, it was definitely user error.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder too how much of that is just the odds. Like, because they're a more affordable battery, is it that more people own them? So then the odds of more people having that experience are higher.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is it not statistically accurate of the representation of the larger scale?
That's a good point. And I also heard somebody say that some of their batteries arrived with low voltage on certain cells, and that the manufacturer was like, "Yep, we'll send you replacements," and did that. So
that's good.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about the drone community and the online shop selling them.
Yeah,
is unlike many other online stores. You can call in, like I did this yesterday. You can call these online stores, and the people running them fly drones every day.
Yeah, like they're part of the community.
Totally. And so you can say, hey, this is what's going on. Give me some advice. And they'll totally be like, okay, this is what I would do. This is what's safe to do.
Yeah.
These are some products you can buy to help. These are the ones that we carry. These are the ones that we don't.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
It seems like it'd be something like, like Joshua Bardwell has so many helpful tutorials already. It'd be like, his next step could be to open an online store, and it would kind of be similar, where they're like, we're people heavily in the community. We've done all this troubleshooting ourselves.
Yeah.
So like for them, it was probably like, well, we're doing all this stuff. We enjoy it. This is a logical step for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huh. That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I
Good
think
community of people.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Cool. Well, let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening this far into the episode.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry we got a little heavy there at the beginning. So if you made it through, thank you.
Yeah. Even if you skipped ahead, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here regardless. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you.